Hi, Nevada. I'm sorry to see that you were not able to join us in that targeted services session at 10. That's really something that you should plan on coming to each week, and then on the off chance that you don't have questions or need help, then those are the weeks that you could skip. So, kind of put that on your calendar for things that you need to do, and that might help you remember in the future. But I know that you have a lot going on, and so what I thought I would try to do today is make a new video for you to try to maybe look at it a different way. I know that you said you watched this particular video, if you're looking at the screen right now, already, and so I don't want to just reiterate that, but I want to go through maybe the graphic organizer with you, because I think that's what's going to really help you understand how to write a literary analysis. So basically, what is it? It's just a paragraph. It's a paragraph about what you read, and it's in time and a place for you to show me that you understand what you read or understand something specific about what you read. Often I'll ask you a very particular question about, the symbolism of something, or, the impact something has on the text. It's a pretty specific question. And the ones that you have in February all do have a specific question attached, which, can be harder, but it also can be easier. And I want to share with you why I think it can be easier and how you can use that to your advantage. So, the reason that I think it's easier, and I'm going to pull up here, I'm sorry, I have a lot of things just open. I'm going to pull up the document for the mending wall, and this is your assignment. It's the very first one. So the Mending Wall is a poem that was written by Frost, and it's about two neighbors, and the neighbor wants a wall, and he frequently says, good neighbor, or good fences make good neighbors. And it's a phrase that has lasted over the years and years and years. And now it's just a common euphemism that people say often, It's amazing how literature can do that. But the neighbor wants this wall, but Frost, our speaker of the poem, does not. He doesn't believe in it, and he doesn't believe that good neighbors make good fences. And so what I'm asking you in this question right here is that it says, what is Frost, the author, implying when he says that his neighbor moves in darkness, as it seems to me, not of woods only, and the shade of trees? Okay, so the question really that I want you to answer, and this will actually be your first sentence of your literary analysis, is answering this question in a sentence form. What might light and darkness represent or symbolize in the poem? The neighbor wants to be closed off, right? And so the neighbor, as Frost says, he moves in darkness, right? Because he wants to be closed off, he wants a fence, he wants privacy, he doesn't want to connect with other people. So in this sense, the neighbor is like darkness. And then Frost, or the speaker here, he doesn't want that. He wants to be open, he wants to have communication, he wants, there not to be this barrier between them, and in that way, the speaker of this poem represents light. And so what you're going to do in your topic sentence, in that very first sentence, is you're going to say the answer, kind of what I just said, but you're going to put that in one sentence, okay? So if we look at the graphic organizer, so if you scroll down on every one of them, there is a graphic organizer, and this connects directly with the video that you've watched a couple of times. And so in here, use these little phrases here as a guide to help you. It says, create a topic sentence that states your inference or answers the literary analysis question. So in here, you need to include the title and the author. So you might say, in the poem, enable editing. Sorry, I was going to actually type in here. I'm sorry about that, Nevada. So you might say in here, and I would actually just go ahead and type right here in this graphic organizer, but you might say, in the poem, The Mending Wall by Robert Frost. Okay, so now I've taken care of the title and the author, and so we know who and what you're writing about, right? Always important. But in the poem, The Mending Wall by Robert Frost, and then I might say something about answering the question. So the question is, how are light and darkness represented? I might say, the the speaker represents light because, and then I'll leave that to you, and the neighbor represents darkness because, and then I want you to fill that in, okay, kind of based on what I just mentioned before. That's going to be your I statement. It's called an inference, and all inferencing is really just what do you understand about what you read, okay? And so this is really that. You're understanding the poem, and you're saying that the speaker represents light because he wants to be open and he wants to have good communication and he doesn't want any barriers in his life, and the neighbor represents darkness because he's so closed off. And a lot of people are even thinking about his mental health, right? So what does that say about his mental health? That he might be depressed, or he might have anxiety, he might want to close himself off from the world. So you could go into that too, or you could kind of look at it a little bit more surface, that he just, because he's so closed off, he is kind of the representation of darkness. Okay, but that's all this first sentence is really just answering the question, like in one sentence, right? Summarizing that, that answer in just a one topic sentence. Okay, now the S is where you just kind of give me a little background on the poem or the story that you're writing about. And so this might be a place where you describe the neighbor. Oh, I did not mean to do that. Let's try to, it doesn't, sorry, Nevada. When technology happens, it's so fun, right? But here I might say something about the neighbor in this poem desperately wants to fix and mend the fence that separates him from the speaker of this poem. The speaker, and that might even be enough, right? To kind of summarize it, you might go into now, you could say something about how the speaker does not want this wall, as long as you're not kind of repeating your answer up here, right? Or you might say the speaker doesn't understand why he wants this wall. Maybe I would say that. The speaker does not understand the neighbor's passion for keeping this wall between them. Whoop. Okay, and then in this, kind of just, it's really, really short, right? It's just kind of giving me some background information. So you have to kind of imagine your reader as never having read the poem. And that's what that S is for, is just to kind of give us a little bit of background information about the passage or the poem or the story that you read. Okay? You might also use this just to introduce your quote. Okay, and you can either do that down here or you can do that here, either one. But you might say something like, the neighbor continues to repeat the phrase. So that's kind of like my introduction to the quote, and here's where I'm going to add my quote. And he frequently says, good fences make good neighbors. He says it several times throughout the poem. Okay, so what I've done here is and remember back to our citing evidence lesson, I cited it. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put the title of the author. So I have Frost, and then I'm going to put the page number that it's on, 63, and then my end punctuation. So actually now what I've done right here in this first E, which is the evidence, I've put a piece of evidence right from the poem into my paragraph. Okay? Now, this is probably the trickiest part of your analysis, because now you need to help me understand what you're thinking, and you need to basically prove to me what you said here is correct, is a correct interpretation of what you read, or is correct in understanding. It's the correct understanding of what you read. Okay, so down here is where you're really going to talk about the neighbor and the neighbor's darkness. Okay, why does the neighbor, I'm just going to pose the question here. This wouldn't be what you type, but why does the neighbor represent darkness? What does he do throughout the entire poem, right? So you might say something about how, don't hit the tab button. Nope. It's a chart. So you might say something, oh, look at that, your English teacher forgot her proper punctuation. So you might say something about how, you know, you might talk about more about his desperation for the wall. You might talk about how the neighbor really sticks to what his father had taught him. Okay, I can't type and talk. To what his father had taught him, which is the wall is necessary. The wall is necessary for, you know, life, for living. He doesn't want to be connected to other people for a variety of reasons. So you're going to go back and just really explain what's going on with this neighbor. And that's where maybe some of your peers have started to get into, why does he want the wall? What does that mean for him and his life? What can you kind of guess, right, or infer about why he would want that? You might make a prediction that he has some mental health issues. You might make a prediction that he's only following in his father's footsteps, and that is very, very common, right? You tend to listen to what your parents have said and then embody that in your own life. So maybe you could talk about that. You could talk about how the neighbor is really just doing what his father had taught him, which is, you know, it's human nature. So maybe, you know, he doesn't know what it's like to not have a wall. Maybe he thinks that we need a wall because it's worked for his family for so many years and is just not open to the new ideas, okay? And then you're going to also talk about, why does the speaker not want a wall? Why does the speaker not want the wall? What can you interpret about him, right? He is open. He wants to be friendly. He wants to share. You might talk about how perhaps the speaker is an extrovert and wants to just be out there with people and connect with people and get to know people. And maybe the neighbor is an introvert like me and doesn't maybe want to get to know everybody around him, or he likes his solitude. Okay, so this is all places where you're going to consider these things, and then that's what you're going to type here, is just what you think. And when you're reading, often there is no wrong answer. It's how you've interpreted it. So if you want to, you know, kind of guess or infer that the neighbor is closed off for a reason, go ahead, tell me why you think the neighbor is closed off for a reason. You know, I don't know the neighbor personally, and I don't know Frost personally, and I don't know the speaker of the poem personally. So my guess is as good as yours about why the neighbor wants to act this way and why the speaker is very different, you know. So this is just a place, I'm sorry if you heard that noise, I'm sorry, but this is just a place for you to kind of share that idea, okay? And then that's it. So if you look further down here, there's this section 2, but this is only optional. So let's say you have, you know, 4 pieces of evidence that you really want to include, or even 2. There's another part of the passage or the text that you want to include, that it's really important for what you're trying to say. Then you might include that here, because you can have a lot of evidence in a literary analysis. But for our expectations, you only need to have 1. So you could stop where we stopped, or you could add more evidence. You know, the speaker says, and maybe you want to add some more about what the speaker says, right? And then the only thing that you need to do if you decide to add more evidence is just explain it. Okay, so then here you'd say, the speaker says this because, and then that's where you're going to get into explaining why you think the speaker said that particular phrase or statement, okay? And then the conclusion sentence is really just simply, you know, kind of that final, you know, I don't know if you did this when you were younger, but like the hamburger writing, you know, where you had an introduction sentence and that was the bun, and then you have a conclusion sentence and that's the bottom bun, and like the hamburger's in the middle. And that's kind of all that is, right? It's just a conclusion statement that wraps up your thoughts here. And so you could even just basically take what you said up here and rephrase it, because that's your inference. So you could say something down here along the lines of, clearly, the speaker has represents light, and the neighbor carries darkness in his